such a beautiful day. I thought if one first day I don't show up, come down to Sheffield Park, because I'm probably down there. Y'all can come down there and meet me there. The reading for this morning is actually from an American poet and author by the name of Susie Kassem, and these are her words. We cannot control the way people interpret our ideas or thoughts, but we can control the words and tones we choose to convey them. Peace is built on understanding, and wars are built on misunderstandings. Never underestimate the power of a single word, and never recklessly throw around words. One wrong word or misinterpreted word can change the meaning of an entire sentence and start a war. And one right word, one kind word, can grant you the heavens and open doors. So in following my leading about today's message, the topic of words kept coming up. And, you know, Spirit's used to me arguing, so it's like, words? That's a pretty general topic, words. And there's a lot we can say about words, I'm thinking, all puns intended. But it's become increasingly so that our access to words has become overwhelmingly prolific. Thanks to the interwebs, I like to call them, internet. So it may be that I'll spend my summer Sundays with you talking and exploring words. Who knows? But for today, I think we need to take a kind of a basic look at how we use language. If as I was thinking about it, we humans hear probably the very first words the moment we're born. We hear, it's a girl, or it's a boy, or as in my and Tanya's case, it's twins. So we go on to hear the words of the adults in our lives, and perhaps those of siblings or cousins or little ones and other important people that show up in our lives in the early years. And then teachers and classmates join in that cacophony already to add their words to the words that have already launched us out into the world. And it could be that you may remember this, the words of our friends in school or in our faith community, or the words of our teachers or faith leaders and other influential adults actually contradict what we heard as we were being raised. So that is eye-opening to us once we begin to branch out. The words that were spoken to us as we were forming into independent beings help shape us. And likely they continue to affect us in some way because they continue to echo in our hearts and in our minds. Like my mother always said, I always am citing my grandmother and her funny quips. They echo. So the words we heard might have been uplifting in the way that they confirmed who we were and affirmed who we were becoming. They may have helped us feel welcome and included among our family and friends. We might have received encouragement and support through words in our youth. Attaboys, we like to call them, kudos. These words served as a blessing on our path of potential and unfolding. For others of us, the words we heard were not so much a blessing as what I call a curse of sorts. We may have felt diminished by the words that were spoken directly to us or around us. Maybe we heard words that were hurtful and made us feel invisible. or made us feel like we wanted to be invisible. As adults who experienced harmful words in our youth, we may still be healing from the pain and the scars those words left in our spirits. I've found in journaling classes that a lot of people can quote verbatim a critical adult from their childhood as they're attempting something now, something that's new or something they feel certain about in the present moment. But they can still cite that criticism. In reality, though, it's quite likely that most of us grew up with a blend of both curse and blessing, words that supported us and diminished us. It's almost trite to say that words are powerful. The Judeo-Christian creation tradition begins with words. And God said, "Let there be light." The God of Genesis spoke everything into existence and then took the time to say, "This is pretty good." The writer of the passage in Proverbs 18 in the Hebrew Scriptures tells us, and I love this, the tongue has the power of life and death. And it's not just the spoken word that has power. There's power in written words as well. In 1893, a Chicago Evening Post journalist by the name of Finley Peter Dunn wrote what has become a very familiar saying to us: the power of newspapers, which is now the power of the printed word, is to comfort the afflicted and to afflict the comfortable. So 130 years later, with the interwebs, we've all been witness to the comfort and to the affliction that has been wrought by printed words, whether we read them online or in a magazine or in newsprint or a magazine or an article rather. So it's not any longer just newspapers that hold sway and influence over the information available to the world's inhabitants. It's not always vetted, it's not always true, but it still affects us. Written and spoken words can be educational. They expose us to different points of view. They can lead us to new understanding. Words can be historical. They can share with us facets of history that resemble our own versions, or they can give us expanded perspectives that tell the story of underdogs and unforgotten or forgotten and unsung heroes. Words can even be fun, and if that wasn't true, I don't think Wordle would have the popularity that it has. I'm kind of a old standards favor of Scrabble and Hangman, you know. But the Christian apostle Paul wrote in Ephesians back all those years ago, "Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, but only what is helpful for building up others according to their needs, that it may benefit those who are listening, even when we don't think they're listening." Paul warned us of the damage that hurtful words can cause. So about 100 years ago, author and metaphysician Florence Scovel Shinn wrote one of my favorite books, and it's called "Your Word is Your Wand," which emphasized the words of Jesus who said, "By your words you are justified, and by your words you are condemned." Not others' words, your own. Shin details how we can use the power of words to create good intentionally in our lives. All of these teachings, ancient and modern, were actually proven in 2020 by neuroscientist Maria Richter and her colleagues. Their research showed that negative words release stress hormones and anxiety-inducing hormones in the physical body. Children who are exposed to negative talk grow up to be more depressed and more anxious.
And diabetic.
And autoimmune, that's a whole nother story. And they go on to perpetuate the negativity they grew up hearing through their own self-talk, whether it's conscious or subconscious. Scientists by then had already proven in 1970s the ACEs study,
Yes.
that negative words build a trauma response in the body that goes on to affect a person's mental and physical well-being for quite possibly, and most often, the rest of their lives. Their entire lives are affected by the trauma response to negative words and negative experiences. And there were 40,000 people in that study, so it was a sizable study. But it isn't just humans who are affected by negative or positive words. In the early 2000s, a Japanese businessman by the name of Masaru Emoto began to study the effects of positivity and negative words that were spoken to water. And people called him a quack because he didn't have a PhD, but he was just trying to prove his own theory that water molecules could be imprinted with the energy of spoken words. He was just curious. And since his untimely death a few years later, a number of scientists worldwide have gone on to prove that not only water is affected positively or negatively by spoken words, but so are plants, so are pets, so are every living being affected, pretty much all of creation affected by human words. I think it kind of adds new meaning to tree hugging. Maybe we should be talking to our trees as well as our plants. In 2018, the global giant IKEA decided they were going to do an experiment with plants in an effort to prove the effects of verbal bullying. And so they subjected plants with the help of young students to either harmful or encouraging words repeatedly. They were put on tape. All the variables like water and soil and light, all of that was the same. Even the words that were said to each plant were exactly the same. Within 30 days, not a lifetime, not a childhood, but 30 days, the effects of those words on each plant were clear. The plants that were exposed to positive words grew faster, they bloomed more than their counterparts that heard negative words. These plants began to wilt, and some even died, and there are pictures of them side by side. You can tell a big difference. Surprisingly, not only the plants were affected by the words they heard, but so were the people who spoke them. You are what you eat, you are what you speak. So I want to close with some queries for you to ponder. How do you use the words you speak? How do you convey the energy that are your words? What messages are your words actually conveying? Are they most often complaints or compliments or praise and excitement? Do they have a tone of love or an undercurrent of hate? Do your words invite inclusion or give a message of exclusion? Are your words encouraging or diminishing? A blessing or a curse? Or maybe, in honor of words, a curse or a blessing. We'll end with the positive. As the summer days unfold, I want us to be encouraged by words. Pay close attention to what you're actually saying out loud and to yourself. Notice whether or not your words are helpful and building others up according to their needs, and if they benefit those who are listening. Consider, are your words a wand that is creating a world that you can say is good? And so it is. Amen.